Dear friends, today we will talk about a really interesting and worrying subject, the leakage of Chinese plans for the construction of a military base in Cuba. But before addressing the topic, I want you to subscribe to the channel, like the video because this is of great value to our work. And without further ado, let's go to the video. When a nation has really serious plans to become a global power, one point is truly mandatory. Its physical presence in the four corners of the world is truly necessary. And this can be achieved in several ways, and this goes through the objectives of its ruling class. There are countries that stand out in the economic and commercial area and yet do not have a strong international physical presence. We can cite two cases, Japan and Germany. Japan is the third largest economy in the world, standing out in several economic sectors, and Germany, which is the largest power in all of Europe, with several prominent industrial sectors. However, there are countries that intend much more than having economic and commercial dominance. This is the case of the United States, intending to exercise much more than economic and commercial hegemony. That is, it also wants to exercise, in addition to economic and financial power, military power over large areas of the globe. In the case of the United States, this is a strategy that began at the end of the 19th century with victory over the Spanish Empire, which gave the United States access to territories in the Caribbean and Pacific. And this presence was accentuated after victory in World War II, with the United States establishing its global presence in many other areas, such as Europe and also Asia. And in a short space of time, the United States abandoned its isolationist policy, a policy that did not necessarily involve its territorial expansion, but rather its expansion of its military presence around the world through its strategic partnerships with countries fundamental to American objectives such as Japan, Germany, South Korea, and Philippines. And it was thanks to these partnerships that today, the United States is by far the country with the largest international military presence, with the United States operating today more than 750 military bases in 80 countries around number, a really impressive number. Only in overseas military detachments do the United States have more military personnel than many armed forces in the world, with the country having approximately 400,000 military personnel scattered in some military base outside its own territory. To get an idea of the magnitude of this number, Japan's self-defense ground forces have just over 150,000 soldiers, and Brazil, which is the main country in the American backyard, has just over 300,000 soldiers, and no country in the world even comes close to such a global presence. However, there is now a country that wants to follow this same path. I refer to Xi Jinping's China. There have been many times when Xi Jinping has declared his intention to make China a global power, and not just in economic and financial power, but mainly in military terms. And if China chose to follow only the economic path, it could follow the path taken by Japan, which, as I mentioned earlier, despite being a huge international economic power, does not seem to have the intention of exercising international military influence. And in Japan's case, its own constitution imposes restrictions on this. But the Chinese want to grow also at a military level, and for this, they necessarily need several military bases scattered around the world. A blue water navy, no matter how many high autonomy ships it has, will always be more limited to a presence more focused on its coast and exclusive economic zone. But if its intention is a truly global presence, it will need several bases scattered around the world, dedicated to logistical support for its fleet. And that is exactly what China is looking for, with its ambitious program known as Project 141. According to details of this project that came to light after the leak of Pentagon documents in March 2023, China aims to open naval logistical support bases in at least 5 strategic countries for its navy. And these countries are Cambodia, United Arab Emirates, Djibouti, Mozambique, and Equatorial Guinea. The objective of the base in Cambodia is very clear. It is to support the Chinese fleet south of the South China Sea and in the Indian Ocean. In the United Arab Emirates, the Chinese objective is to have a physical presence in the strategic Persian Gulf. In Djibouti and Mozambique, The object is to increase the capacity of the Chinese Navy to move through the Indian Ocean and along the eastern coast of Africa. In Equatorial Guinea, it aims to give autonomy to the Chinese to navigate through the South Atlantic, right in front of Brazil. But in addition to the aforementioned bases, the Chinese would be preparing plans for the installation of a base in Cuba, just over 210 kilometers from the coast of the United States. Through these bases scattered around the world, China intends to obtain the global reach it so desires, something that obviously worries and bothers the United States a lot. We must remember the incidents with the former Soviet Union in the feared missile crisis in Cuba itself, even coming close to a nuclear confrontation with the former communist power. Now, a little history. The missile crisis occurred in the context of the Cold War in 1962, due to the discovery of a Soviet missile base under construction in Cuba. After weeks of negotiation, the Soviets withdrew their missiles from the island. And now, a new Cold War seems to have started. And now the communist power is another. And everything indicates that it is also very ambitious in its desires to confront American hegemony. Project 141 came to light in April 2023 in leaks of Pentagon documents and is part of an ambitious Chinese expansion program aimed at increasing its global military presence. And the most worrying aspect of this project is the installation of a military base in Cuba, just a few kilometers from American territory, and would also include the installation of at least 5 more military bases abroad, plus 10 logistical support locations by 2030. Reports on the possible agreement emerged just one day after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken traveled to China for a 2-day diplomatic visit, where he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to the leaked document, China has been negotiating with Cuba for the construction of this base. However, the White House was quick to downplay the issue, saying that it is no secret that China has been trying to increase its influence around the world. Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, when questioned by reporters on a visit to China, was very emphatic, saying that they are monitoring the situation, but that the government will always defend our homeland's interests. For the U.S. government, the Chinese base in Cuba is certainly the most worrying aspect of Chinese plans for Cuba, and according to the leaked document, the project includes proposals not only for the 5 overseas bases already mentioned in the video, but also for 10 logistical support locations by 2030. Although China does not plan them, it countered the U.S. by referring to Washington's hundreds of foreign military bases to say that the United States is not in a position to criticize on this subject. It remains to be seen if Chinese plans will really materialize, and if they do materialize, what will be America's response? And now, what do you think can happen? Leave us your comments saying your opinion on this subject. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. This helps us grow and always bring content for you. Thank you for getting here, and see you next video.